If you've ever wondered how many hours of study should my team really be doing each evening or each week, then this video is for you. And this week's question comes from Kirsty, and she asks, how many hours per evening should students be doing for their study in year 11 and 12? And I have a very precise and specific answer for you, and I will not be mentioning any numbers. So it's going to be very precise, very specific, with no numbers, because all students should be working in an outcome-based method. So they need to know, if I'm going to be working for 30 minutes, 2 hours, what am I going to have not just produced, but achieved in that time? Because they could produce 3 pages of notes, but do they really know and understand that content? Have they studied it and made those notes in a way that means that it is actually going to be retained in their long-term memory? Because there are very specific note-taking strategies that are more effective than others, and really more effective than many of the ways that students are taking notes at the moment that I see. And what is the outcome of that? What are they going to have achieved? What will they see that shows that they have been effective in that time? So I'm all about students chunking down their time. I would never want a student to just think, hey, I'm going to study for 2 hours. It would be like, let's do a 20, a 30, maybe a 40-minute block. What am I going to get done in that time? And what will be the outcome at the end of that block of time? I'm very into, you probably heard me talk before about being very into reverse engineering everything, starting with the end in mind. I teach a reverse engineered revision planning system, for example. It is not about having a study planner that says, okay, we're going to do like 2 hours of revision of English on Monday and 2 hours of maths on Tuesday and maybe an hour of bio on Wednesday, whatever it might be. It's about how much of a content we've got to go through, how much of a challenge is each of that section of content going to be, like different topics, is there more in there, how challenging do I find that content, and then plugging it all into the calendar. So yes, it will bring in an element of time, of course, because that is our main limitation in life. That's the one thing we can't get more of, is time. But we want to be as effective and strategic in that time as possible. So very often I will talk to students and say, okay, like if I see you, if I was a fly on the wall watching you revising, what would that look like? So many students struggle to describe exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what the outcome is. Like, how do they know that they've achieved their goal in whatever it is that they are studying or revising or producing in that time? Another example of this would be tackling an essay. So students are never going to want to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to sit down and write an essay. I would teach every student to chunk down and structure every element of that. And let me tell you, it does not start with writing the introduction. They're going to want to, first of all, dissect essay title, then they're going to want to construct a plan, then they need to think about what points and evidence they're going to be having inside of that, and then they're going to want to start to like go through and decide which pieces of evidence they are going to use, which quotes. They're going to write their body, they're probably then going to go back and write their intro and their conclusion. But every step of that, there's probably about 7 steps there, is going to be a chunk of time, and they're going to know exactly what they're going to have achieved at the end of that chunk of time. It might be, I'm going to spend 30 minutes deciding and finding the quotes that I'm going to use. So really, the point here is that it is not about how many hours they're spending. Very often, many students could be spending less time and actually getting a lot more outcome and result for that time. But so many students, especially the hardworking ones and the ambitious students, really feel like they need to be spending all of that time studying. And so there are 2 outcomes to that. Either they could still get their same results with less effort and less time and have more free time for those other things in life, or they could still work just as hard and achieve even better results because they'll be studying in a much more strategic and effective way. So that is my answer to you, Kirsty, and to everybody else who may have been wondering, you know, how much time should my team really be spending studying? Sometimes it might feel like they're not doing enough. Sometimes it might feel like they're doing way too much, more than like it should be required. So it all comes down to, what are the outcomes within that time? And how will they know if they've achieved them? And then it's about finding and using the most effective and strategic ways to achieve those outcomes. So I'm Katie Jones, Great Transformation Expert. If you have a question that you would love to ask and have me answer on one of these weekly videos, I'm going to be answering a question every week throughout term 1. Just drop me an email, support@rocksolidstudy.com, and I will see you again next week. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you then.